Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Yeah. Being a trans feminine, queer, and literary theologian interested in studying narrative, I brought you this text today because it reminds me of my own story and my own coming out story. When I first realized I was a transgender woman, I was attending William Jewell. On that first night, I was really searching for answers. I was not Bagwas in this situation, extending an invitation. Instead, I was Judith in search of an invitation of care while fear loomed over me. The day after I came out to myself, I went to the Jewel coffee shop called The Perch. It's very on theme. We're the Cardinals. Uh, it's all very on theme there. I searched for a friend that I was not particularly close to at that time, unaware if she was really even working that day. It was really a shot in the dark. I was looking for a banquet of compassion, as I have termed it. Now, I define a banquet of compassion as this: an event where we feel each other's distress and suffering. This includes some kind of genuine shared connection. These banquets are surprisingly exclusive for some of us, especially those who claim a marginalized identity, who have been given some excuse as to why they should not be able to attend somebody else's banquet of compassion. So when Bagwas invites Judith to a banquet in this text, I wondered, why is he not invited to a similar event of compassion in the rest of the text? And why does his trauma go unspoken for in the text? Would I be extended an invitation in this new life that I pursued, or would I be forbidden and told that only a select few are allowed to attend these celebrations of love and of care? Bagwas, a Persian eunuch located within the Book of Judith, is a character that is often hidden within the background of a biblical text that is defined by a fight against the threatened enslavement of the people of Bethulia. As Judith beheads the general Holofernes, upending the social order of the Assyrians, her action causes the text as a whole to be seen as radical by some biblical scholars. Read as a faithful servant who does not aid in the deliverance of the citizens of Bethulia, Bagwas is typically interpreted as a subordinate enabler to the oppression that Judith faces, rather than a slave who exists in complicated social structures that require him to show up within his society in unique ways. The swing of Judith's sword highlights a bold choice as she overcomes her oppressors, underlining her ability to choose and flee to the safety of the people of Bethulia, while at the same time emphasizing the eunuch's lack of such security within his own camp. A slave castrated by his master, Bagwas's parallel desire to overthrow Holofernes and find his own freedom is complicated by his social location and need for safety and survival. If he wishes to communicate compassion, rebelling amidst the chaos, it is necessary for the eunuch to use double meaning and to be defiant of the expectations that are put upon him as a eunuch. As Holofernes plans to hold a banquet in verse 10, he requires Bagwas to do his work for him, as he demands that the eunuch invite Judith to the party on his behalf. The general invites only slaves, his banquet likely being planned to feature multiple meals, lots of wines. This is typical for a Persian banquet. As his invitation excludes those of higher status, we affirm the enslaved location of Bagwas here, as we note that the eunuch is the only named character besides Judith or Holofernes to attend the banquet at all. Then moving to verse 11, we observe the name Bagwas as a whole, because it is a name that is synonymous with being a Persian eunuch, according to multiple scholars. In many ways, it is not a name. It is a purposeful minimization and denial of humanity, as those in power eliminated names and gave titles instead. The trauma of Bagwas exists through his lack of recognition, through his castration, and through his possible origin as a captive of war or as a gift to a ruler. Despite that trauma, the general here wishes for him to serve. I highlight compassion partly for this verse, knowing that Holofernes only cares for Bagwas when it is convenient for him. Speaking to Judith, Bagwas says in verse 13, "Let this pretty servant not hesitate to come to my Lord to be honored in his presence and to enjoy drinking with us." When I talked to my friend that day at the perch, following my coming out, this is what I remember her telling me in our brief conversation. Do not hesitate. Do not compromise yourself. In her brief acceptance, I had received an invitation to a banquet of compassion. In the words of Bagwas, Judith receives the same. Mentioning becoming like one of the Assyrian women here, he also combats the narrative of Holofernes as he warns of the general's history. The eunuch knows the history of the Assyrians as a whole, helping Judith avoid the trauma of sexual abuse as he assumes their similar social location. He can't say this directly, despite being seemingly separated from the Assyrians, as he speaks to Judith. Though Bagwas does not make the same commitment as Judith does earlier in the text to not speak falsely, he speaks in double meaning. I would argue that due to their equality with Judith being a potential slave, these words go unsaid. They have a common language here. They must have this shared language because anything that is spoken could lead to the punishment of the eunuch. Here, Bagwas aims to tell Judith a similar message to what Paul tells the Philippians. Do not be anxious. For Bagwas it is, I am not against you. May the God of peace be with you. Judith responds to Bagwas' invitation in verse 14, saying, Who am I to refuse my Lord? Whatever pleases him, I will do at once, and it will be a joy to me until the day of my death. Here she too speaks in double meaning, using the word Lord to commit herself to God, while on the surface seeming to commit herself to Holofernes. In doing so, she fulfills her promise to not speak falsely to Holofernes, circumventing the need to actually commit her body to the oppressor. I am reminded here of Octavia Butler's Kindred, which showcases the main character Dana being transported to the antebellum South and often being forced to save a man named Rufus who depends on her to save him anytime that he is in danger. It's a narrative that is loaded with trauma and family history, with family of Rufus being both slave owners and the ancestor of our narrator, Dana. Butler, throughout the novel, outlines the weight of language as the white individuals of the past demand the usage of words that affirm their role as master. So when Bagwas is robbed of his name, forced to serve the man that lords over the slaves of the Assyrians, we are reminded why the language that Bagwas chooses throughout subverts the existing power structure of hierarchy and patriarchy, and why his denial of service is revolutionary. Moving on to the rest of the text, the banquet occurs in chapter 12, verse 20. Holofernes drinking more than he ever has before. In chapter 13, the eunuch leaves him alone as he is dead drunk in order to himself find rest. We must question this decision if Bagwas is indeed an experienced eunuch. He should be aware of Holofernes' inability to make an informed choice due to his drunken state. Therefore, I believe that Bagwas is making a bold and informed choice in choosing rest over serving his master. Unlike Dana, he is not tied in any way to Holofernes. He is able to make his own decision. The cry of the eunuch is heard most here, an enslaved individual taken advantage by his empire, able to claim autonomy through rest. As my grandmother, Mary Beth, would say famously, never do anything for a man that you aren't willing to do for the rest of your life. Amen. In chapter 13, verse 4, Judith prays for God to back her bold action before raising her sword and striking the head of Holofernes, decapitating him. In the death of the general, triumph is found for Judith as she escapes potential enslavement and runs away from the Assyrian camp. The decapitation, we find similarity to the castration of Bagoas as the traumatic memory of the eunuch is evoked within the scene despite his lack of active participation. His master dies under a canopy that was wove with gold and purple, the latter known for representing both the eunuch and royalty in antiquity. Separated from the general, Bagoas is spared, despite Judas seeming to outline him as a target earlier in the text within her prayer. The compassion he gives when they talk before the banquet seems to be noticed by her, even if he is spared only for a day. Chapter 14, he is awoken by the marching of Judah's soldiers towards the Assyrian camp following the death of Holofernes, demanding that the eunuch be the one to awaken their lord, despite the urgency of war. Bagoas enters the tent to find the general dead and decapitated. Screaming in a loud voice, he cries and tears his clothes before going to search for Judith. And though this scene can be read as a feeling of devastation communicated by Bagoas, we can also read it as pretty comedic and pretty performative. Designed by the eunuch to secure safety and serve his future interests, Bagoas is dramatic with his show of extreme emotion, showing those that have taken him to see the general that he was loyal to the very end. In this performance, we are also reminded of the uncertain future of Bagoas, as the text does not provide whether he becomes free as a result of the death of Holofernes, or if he dies as a result of the war caused by the actions of Judah. Upon the death of Holofernes, all the Assyrians scream and tear their clothes for him. Despite the eunuch's horrific experiences with trauma, despite the control that others continue to assert over him, despite people taking his name away from him, no one in the text cries for Bagoas. Instead, he must be in mourning. Bagoas always must suffer alone. As Bagoas is screaming, I wondered if he remembers the location that he perhaps once was taken from, hearing an instrument similar to a flute, or remembering the last light that went out from his old camp. And as the soldiers marched closer and closer to the camp of the Assyrians, I wonder if Bagoas wonders, was it my compassion and my desire to rest that led to the liberation of another? My friend once invited me to a banquet of compassion, refusing to let me suffer alone. Going forward, you must plan these banquets with those around you. These events can still include the meals and the wine that was present at many Persian banquets. However, your events must be inclusive of everyone. It must be a banquet of compassion. Thank you.